One of the things to do in Las Vegas, away from the hustle and bustle of the Strip, is to visit the Clark County Museum, which is located in Henderson, Nevada. Though not as well known as its big brother, the Nevada State Museum at the Springs Preserve, it has its own unique contribution to the preservation of local and state history. The bonus is that the administrator of the county museums is none other than Mark Hall Patton. You all know him from the cable TV show Pawn Stars. Among the many informative exhibits at the museum is the venerable old number 4442 steam locomotive. It was donated to the museum in 1984 by the city of Las Vegas when Fantasy Children's Park was dismantled to make way for a new state office building complex. The locomotive and its tender sit within a fenced-off area to prevent visitors from getting too close. When it was in Fantasy Park, which was designated as a hands-on type park where children were allowed to crawl all over the engine, it became a bragging point among the kids at that time to tell from which part of the engine they fell off. Unfortunately, this is no longer the case in this more lawsuit-prone society. So to make your visit to the locomotive more beneficial, I have elected to outline for you the basic parts of a steam locomotive so that you will leave with a better understanding of what it takes to make these magnificent objects work. Then later, you can do your own research on the parts of the steam locomotive that interest you. First, let's look at the main parts of the steam locomotive. Starting from the left is the cab, where the engineer and fireman were located. Next, the small structure with the vertical tube is a steam-run generator, which provides the electricity for lights in the cab, the headlights, the classification lights, and the number board if one is present. The dome structure is one of the two sand domes which were used to store sand that was distributed to the tracks in front of the wheels whenever needed to provide traction during icy or wet conditions. The middle dome contained the steam regulator, which allowed superheated steam to be sent to the valves and pistons in the appropriate amounts to drive the train. The bell and smokestack are obvious. The smoke box is the reservoir for heated fumes from the boiler and the exhaust steam from the pistons, all of which exit via the smokestack. And finally, the boiler, where the heated water is converted into steam. Beginning at the front of the engine is the smokestack. This is the front of the smoke box. This is the smoke box door, which can be opened for inspection and cleaning. Next is the headlight. The step to the running board. Some engines actually had ladders here, but on this particular engine there were usually hooks attached at intervals such that one could climb up to the running board. The bumper, the coupler, and the pilot step. Now this is called the pilot or cow catcher by some, But basically, when there were no cows to push off the railroad, they started to be eliminated in preference for the step. Again is the cab with a zoomed view of the inside. The windows were enclosed with glass panes. Back to the top, there is the steam power generator for lighting and the first sand dome, followed by the steam dome with what appears to be the regulator stem along with pressure release valves and perhaps a whistle. On the side view is the handrail for holding on while moving along the narrow running board. In this case, the running board or foot board is made of steel, but some models used wood. A small builder's plate would be in the position of the yellow print on the smoke box, but apparently it was removed or lost somewhere along the way. The narrow tubes represent the sandpipes leaving the sand dome on either side, with the one to the left going down to the rear of the first wheel for traction in reverse, and the pipe to the right extending down to behind the main driver wheel to increase traction going forward when needed. The check valve is a one-way valve that allowed water to enter the boiler under pressure to replenish the supply. The valve prevented water or steam from escaping from the boiler. Due to the loss of water by producing steam to drive the pistons and other devices, there was a constant need to maintain a safe water level in the boiler. Moving on to the heart of the steam engine, that huge metal box at the front and side of the locomotive consists of two components. The top compartment, the steam chest, contains a spool-shaped valve that moves back and forth, alternately allowing steam into one side of the cylinder below, pushing the piston in one direction while simultaneously allowing spent steam on the other side of the piston to escape into the smoke box and out of the smokestack. The action of the piston is transmitted to the main rod, which in turn pushes the main wheel via a crank. The crank is also attached to connecting or side rods that move the other wheels. An eccentric rod supplies the force to move the valve back and forth. All of this activity has been miraculously engineered to work in concert to move the massive locomotive and its attached train cars. The cylindrical container just above the first wheel is a compressed air reservoir. Just behind it is the actual air compressor. This compressed air is used to operate the air brake system. The large pipe leading from the smoke box to the valve chest carries the superheated steam required to drive the piston. Now on to the last section of the locomotive. The power reverse cylinder assists the rods that reverse the action of the spool valve and cause the wheels to rotate in the opposite direction or reverse. Pictured here are the leaf springs, components of the firebox, and the ash pan, which collects all of the debris from the combusted coal or wood, and the end of the sandpipes. And finally, the water injector is used to force water under steam pressure into the boiler. There's a water intake pipe that comes from the tender into the injector, where it meets the steam, becomes heated, and then is injected into the boiler with enough force to overcome the existing steam pressure. Just imagine how all the parts mentioned here and those not seen all somehow work in harmony to drive these powerful locomotives. This is a testament to years of advancements in locomotive engineering. So when you come to the museum and have your visit with good old number 4442, you will have a basic knowledge of the components of a steam locomotive, and you won't have to be like me, who had to visit the locomotive at least 3 times to acquire a basic understanding of what I was viewing.